Okay, welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Johnny Craddock,
And I'm Darren Lundberg.
and today this episode is going to be Raising Cain, a 1992 film directed by Brian De Palma and starring John Lithgow, the incomparable John Lithgow, I might add. Um, uh, Darren, again, we have a special guest with us. We have Lindsay Washburn. She joined us for our From Dusk Till Dawn episode, so
Yes.
it's been a while. What episode
hmm
number was that anyway? Like
I don't know, 68,
80? Oh, yeah, it's been a
70,
while.
Been a
Like
minute.
74.
years, I think.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming back and joining us again. We appreciate it. How you been the last year and a half, 2 years? How's things going for you?
Good, good. They're going good. I'm making videos and collaborating with people, and it's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
Great. Darren mentioned that you were absent for a while, for a few months.
Yeah. No, I have Crohn's disease, and actually this month is IBD Awareness Month. May
Right.
is, and the 19th was World IBD Day. And no, I have Crohn's disease, and every once in a while it just likes to take me out of commission, just for no reason. It just decides to interrupt my life.
Yeah. I,
So I get big gaps in my upload schedule, and that can make it hard to get any kind of traction, and get a regular audience. And the audience I have has been great. They stuck with me through big gaps in upload times and things like that. I have people that have come back time and time again, and I really appreciate that. But no, I don't just disappear and be like, screw that shit, No, it's I'm just trying to take care of myself so that I can put forth a good enough product, a good
yeah.
product, something
Well,
that I can be happy with putting out there. You don't
yeah.
want to, I don't want to be sitting here on camera and be, half dead trying to talk about, Iron Eagle 3 or something like that. No one wants to see that.
Yeah.
No one wants to see that.
We are glad you're feeling better and
Yeah.
Thank
that you
you.
joined us, by the way. We feel special because you joined us. Darren gave me your Twitter bio, and I have to introduce you by reading all this. I
Oh
kind of
gosh.
feel like I'm introducing a Game of Thrones character here when I read all this. And you've got the blonde hair and the braid, so you kind of look the part too. But so your Twitter bio says analog evangelist,
Yes.
VHS queen, keeper of static, finder of lost media, watcher movies nobody remembers on formats nobody respects, and the
Yes.
keeper of the, is that it? Keeper of
That's
the
it.
static? That's it. Okay, sorry. It's a long one. And yeah. So did you come up with those names yourselves? Are those given to you by other people or
Well, Jason from Binge Movies dubbed me the queen of VHS. So I kind of stole that from him. He bestowed that upon me. And the other ones, I was talking with someone, and they mentioned like the analog evangelism, and I thought that sounded just so perfect,
Yeah.
that is so cool. Has a
And it
nice,
was time to rewrite my bio and give it a little more panache. So I
yeah.
came up with that.
I remember that you were like a horror expert. Now, are you is that self-proclaimed or did or
I love horror. Horror is one of my favorite genres, but I love all movies. I love all kinds of movies. I gravitate more towards horror and action, the fun stuff, the bloody stuff, the weird stuff,
yeah.
which is, we're
The
here
good
talking
stuff.
about Raising Cain, so
Yeah.
it fits
It's
right
a weird
into
one.
my wheelhouse. But no, I love all movies, but in my collection that you see behind me, mostly horror and action.
Yeah, and the last time we had you on, all those movies were in boxes, and so
Yes,
we're glad they're up on
yes.
the shelf now for us to gander at.
hmm
We talk.
Yes, they found their home.
Well, last time we asked you like how many you had, like 4 or 500. You said you almost had 500. Has that collection like
It's more than that now.
okay.
Yeah. The collection continues to grow, and I keep running out of space because I love VHS, but they take up a lot of shelf space.
Yeah. I think we mentioned that during our From Dusk Till Dawn episode.
Yes.
So yeah, we noticed again, I was looking at your timeline and you
hmm
were doing videos like religiously, and then there was just a gap where there was, I
Yeah.
think it was a 4 month gap where you just stopped
Yeah.
doing things. And so I think that's, I was reaching out to you just finding out. Because
hmm
again, since we have that connection, since I have the
Yeah.
colitis, you have the Crohn's, I
hmm
always, I worry about you. I can't
Thank
help
you.
it. So whenever you tweet things about you being in the hospital or
hmm
problems, I get mad. I'm like, why are you doing this to one of the greatest people on the interwebs? So But looking at, I mean, the thing that I really adored when you came back, you had the what was it, the Sioux City Geek Con 2024.
Yeah, yeah.
And first of all, you had a booth that
Hmm.
I know a lot of us don't have a lot of money and a lot of resources, but your booth was just adorable, beautiful. It was so you. Like, how did you come
Yeah.
up with that
Well,
booth?
and I've tried to replicate that here for
Yeah,
my background. It's like,
right.
and a lot of my background is in theater and building sets and stage managing, and so I wanted to go for that old school, like I grew up in a house that had wood paneling walls, and it just fits
Yeah.
with kind of who I am and what influenced me and part of why I love the movies that I love. So I built flats and made those, and I made the giant VHS boxes that I had in my booth with cardboard and hot glue and printed things out. It was very hodgepodge and homemade, but I just felt more like I needed to show a little bit more of my own personality and inject that more into what I
Mhm.
was doing. And it sounds gross to say, but like the branding of it.
Yeah.
So
No,
No,
that's
that
cool.
that makes total sense. Yeah, again, just having conversations with you and watching your videos, it was just perfect. I'm like, that is
thank
her.
you.
Like, if you want to know, you just need to look at her setup and how she's sitting. But what I loved is you had that interview with Charlie Schlatter. I hope I'm getting his
He
name
was
right.
so much fun. He was
Yeah,
so much fun. And
it seemed
and
like
he was very much game to whatever I was throwing at him. He kept up with me, which was fun.
right. Well, anybody that doesn't know Charlie Schlatter, he was in Bright Lights, Big City,
Mhm.
18 Again, Heartbreak Hotel. I think that was a Chris Columbus movie. He
Yes.
also played Ferris Bueller
On
in TV on
TV,
TV.
yes. And dated Jennifer Aniston.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Until she left him for that
For,
horrible Brad Pitt guy.
yeah,
Right.
that guy.
And also like he voiced the Flash in some Batman Unlimited kind of direct to video things. But the thing that really charmed my ass off was when you were talking to him and you gifted him with a copy of Sunset Heat on
Yes,
VHS
which
with
is a
Dennis Hopper.
terrible movie. It's so bad.
It was, but what was great is just you could see the joy on his face that you
Mhm.
had that connection. And again, it was one of those things I'm like, that is so Lindsay. That's just something she would totally do. You know what I mean? And so did you just have a copy
I
of that?
just had it.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
I was looking through his IMDb because I'm like, I need, because I talked to him the day before. I'm like, hey, would
Right.
you do an interview with me? You've done some fun stuff, I think. And so I was looking through his IMDb just to see if there was anything I missed because I was trying to think of questions to ask him. And I saw that movie pop up. I'm like, I have that movie. I watched that movie just like 4 months ago. And it has Dennis Hopper in it. I was like, I'm
Right.
gonna take it. Yeah, this is gonna be a question too. Right at the end, I'm gonna spring it on him.
Nice.
Such a joy. Like I can't tell you how much. I think I even messaged you and said that was
Yes,
amazing that you
yes.
did that. So we'll obviously we'll see into Brian De Palma and everything, but your
Hmm.
channel, just looking at, I mean, some of the things that you have been doing. Again, besides that Charlie Schlatter, I think you interviewed Lisa Wilcox for the Halloween
Yes, my
Matilda.
favorite final girl. She's from the Nightmare on Elm Street, 4 and 5, the
Oh,
Dream Child and the Dream Master.
right.
So
Okay.
yes.
How was that interviewing her? Like your
Oh, it was
favorite final
great.
girl?
Like I said, she's my absolute favorite final girl of all time. She survives. She beats Freddy and gets to live on,
Yeah.
at least through the movies. But she was great. She was wonderful. Very, very nice and welcoming and put up with my pestering. So
Well, again, these kind of dream interviews, talking to people that you idolize, right?
mhm.
So yeah, that was great. Again, besides your reviews of like Sinners and Death of a Unicorn and The Monkey, all that stuff, you're doing some really fun YouTube shorts where I love how you come and you're like, hey, and you're just chatting and like I think you brought it like some Errol's Video Club like
Yeah, yeah, that was
tapes,
the I love collecting different VHS, especially rental tapes, because there's so many different smaller regional chains and mom and pop stores that a lot of them were bought out by Blockbuster, or they just couldn't keep up with the competition, or just as rental stores phased out, they disappeared. But you have all these tapes laying around that have their logos, and all of them have this interesting history, and so many people have memories of going to those stores, and I've had so many comments on those videos because I did Errol's video club, I did Pop and Go video,
Right.
and
Home of the
just
hits.
the home of the hits. Exactly. Yes. And so many people have commented like, oh man, I remember that place, or yeah, I used to go there. Oh man, I have an Errol's. And Sean Cavender, who's a buddy of mine, and he said he's got a beta max tape from them, and they came in a black case instead of a red case. So I thought that was interesting. But
Well, that's like catnip for Johnny and me growing up with like going to video stores and all
yeah.
the clamshells and
Mm-hmm.
the way that they would, you know, and that you collect them, I think is just really fun. And it's something that if I had more money, it's something I would definitely be doing. But I guess the final thing I wanted to say too is you just started a best of the best. You did a
Yes.
forgotten franchises, which is weird because I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, if I've got Eric Roberts and James Earl Jones and Chris Penn and Sally Kirkland and Louise
Mm-hmm.
Fletcher, and it's when you were naming these things, I was like, how is this forgotten? Like, you think that would get a lot of attention, but do
Oh
you think
yeah.
it's because of Eric Roberts kind of brings it down?
No, I think it's just it's a movie that it's like it's not an action movie. It's a sports drama. It
Right.
really is. It's a sports drama, and it didn't do real great in the box office, but people saw it on like TNT and TBS and HBO way back in the day. So there
Right.
are people who have really fond memories of it. But the fact that that film spawned a 4 film franchise and turns into this like crazy off the rails action series from this sports drama. I love finding franchises that do like I did the Relentless series before that. It's
Yes.
just you wouldn't think that these movies would have their own franchises, but they do. They do. And a lot of people didn't realize that Best of the Best had more than 1 or 2 sequels. So
It's fun. Yeah, again, all these great the Relentless thing too. I watched that first one religiously. So just the fact that you covered that was so fun. And that's a lot of the stuff that you do. If you're really hooked on that VHS stuff, like there's no reason you shouldn't be following or watching all these videos that you do. It's just you're keeping up your brand, as we like to say.
That's awesome. All right, Darin, let's jump into it, shall we?
Okay, sure.
Raising Cain. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. I'm sure we all have a lot of thoughts about it. But I want to kind of, like we always do, go over our histories, what our histories with the movie and with Brian De Palma, and maybe even
Yeah.
John Lithgow, like when you first noticed him. We'll go with Lindsay first. Can you tell us your history with the movie, when you first saw it, where were you, how you felt, all of that?
I I messaged you earlier that I don't think I'd watch this movie this century.
Yeah.
It has been a while, and I did not remember much of it because I probably watched it way back in the day when it was on like HBO on a free weekend or something like that. And the only thing I really remembered was just John Lithgow. That's all I remembered from this movie, and just like just how over the top and just very almost exaggerated some of his performances. And so that always stuck with me. And also because the John Lithgow that I knew as a kid was Harry and the Hendersons John Lithgow,
Yeah.
not murdering babysitters and stealing children John Lithgow. That's not who I knew.
Yeah.
And it's just watching he's done so, like, he plays just a great bad guy, crazy guy, but he also plays these really funny, goofy, family friendly roles.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to De Palma, uh the movies of his that I really love are like Carrie, Blowout, Scarface. There's a lot of Scarface has kind of become a meme these days, or a joke. Say hello to my little friend. That's what people know about this movie. But I love that movie. I think it's amazing, just the way he shot it, and the costuming and the color and everything, the performances. That I think it's so great. And Casualties of War, like some of his stuff that isn't the in the thriller genre that he did. And I he he took so much influence kind of from Hitchcock, but what Hitchcock could have like unrestrained kind of do, and then just kind of took those next steps with it. And that's what I've always liked about De Palma is like, no, his characters don't get out of the movie unscathed. They don't walk away into the sunset. They may be alive at the end, but very, very scarred, very, very scarred. And that's, I think, what's always set him apart from some of the other directors of his time, especially when he was coming up.
Yeah. Raising Cain with me, I think it was a VHS rental. I think I knew about De Palma from The Untouchables. I think maybe that was my first brush with him, which is kind of a tame movie, even though it's really gory in parts.
Very tame.
And so Raising Cain was one, and John Lithgow, I this is going to sound weird. I knew John Lithgow from World According to Garp. I don't know how I saw that movie so early, but again, he plays Roberto Muldoon in that one, which is, again, he's transvestite. Is that how he's trying to be?
That's how he's characterized. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And it was a very good perform. I remember a very honest, sincere. Even as like a little kid, I was like, I bought whatever. I didn't know it was an actor. I just felt like that was the person, right? So. I don't know how I watched World According to Garp as a kid. That's not something you should be watching. Maybe my mom just had it on. But again, Raising Cain was one. I saw it with John Lithgow's in it. Or De Palma, I recognized him from Untouchables. And then I thought it was fun. Like as a VHS, it's one of those things, Lindsay, and maybe you'll agree with this, is like you rent it on a Friday night, this in the horror section, and it's a good, fun 90 minutes. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not going to rattle you or change you. But I thought, oh, that's a good, fun Friday night rental, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's how I've always liked that one. And again, after that, in the 90s, we always say this. That's when Johnny and I started diving into all these movies and directors and their filmography. So that's when I watched Blowout and Dress to Kill and Sisters and, like you said, Casualties of War. So we'll talk about De Palma a little bit more, especially with all the little flourishes they did. But I cannot believe that we're on episode, 123, and we haven't talked about De Palma. Johnny, I know that for our 70s Palooza, De Palma was very very prominent in the 70s. He came out with Spielberg and Coppola and all that. But again, looking at his filmography, I was like, oh, these are good movies. I just don't know if they're of the level of a Coppola, or because De Palma has a niche, right? But I don't know, like if he has a Godfather, maybe Blowout does that, or if he has a Jaws or anything like that. I don't know, Lindsay. What do you think?
I would say Scarface is probably that.
Scarface, yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
In fact, I would have picked that movie had it come out in '79. It would have been in our '70s
right.
series, but because it was '80, I couldn't think it.
But both, am I overstepping? Am I saying it wrong that maybe De Palma didn't quite reach the heights of a Spielberg or
I think he did. I think he did in his own style. I mean, because the stuff he was doing was just insane. Like the stuff he was doing with Carrie and especially Blowout. I mean, that movie is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Just structurally and just one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when he's panning around the room as John Travolta's looking through all the equipment and everything. I just love that sequence. But no, Carrie also was a huge hit for him. Right. And no, I think he's had his moments like a Godfather and like a Jaws. It's been because what do they say? Oh, it's demented, deranged, deceptive De Palma.
Yeah.
He's very much his own brand.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of went mainstream with Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Touchables in a way.
Yeah.
Again, I'm overstep a little bit. I just thought Blowout and Carrie are very, very strong movies. But maybe looking at the Coppola and Scorsese filmography, maybe it doesn't have quite as many. But you're right. He's like Raising Cain is a good, fun De Palma movie, right? Even though it doesn't quite hit those same heights.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Darin, I first saw this with you at your place. So, that's kind of our thing.
Again, yeah.
But as far as John Lithgow goes, John Lithgow, I first saw him in Twilight Zone. That whole airplane scene where he's going crazy, seeing the balloon on the wing. That's where I first recognized him. And then, growing up, watching Third Rock from the Sun, it was kind of like that's how I knew him too. And like you, Lindsay, Harry and the Hendersons. And then I see this movie, and I'm like, what was that? That's not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, John Lithgow, he makes this movie, and even with the over-the-top performances, I think it's so much fun to watch him, switch back and forth between characters and just watch the just how he embodies each character so well, and just he just gives everything to it. And so I really, really appreciate that. I respect it like crazy.
Mm.
So I think he's the reason why I like this movie so much is him. I have other issues with the movie. We can talk about those. I always have issues, but with Brian De Palma, I think Carrie was my first introduction to him, and like you said, it's an awesome movie. That's where you first kind of start to notice his camera work,
Mhm.
and I think he carries that through his filmography, and I think we can talk about that later too. But because I have a lot of things I want to talk about with this movie and his angles he uses in this movie.
Right.
I say this all the time about Carrie. It's hard when you're doing an adaptation of something because you want the voice of the like Stephen King, say you want his voice, but you also want the director to have a voice too. I think Carrie is maybe the most masterful adaptation because it's very much Stephen King, but it's also very much Brian De Palma, and that's
Hmm.
so hard to do. It's the best of both worlds. So again, Carrie is just a masterful horror movie. Yeah, again, all this stuff. He knows what he's doing. There are parts of this movie that just wow me, and other parts where I'm like, what? So we can definitely talk about those.
Well, let's dive deeper into John Lithgow's performance then, because
Okay.
that's the fun part. I want to get into the
Mm.
fun part. So, Lindsay, what do you think about this performance and what he was able to accomplish with it?
I think he did it the only way you could do a, roles like this. I mean, because from the little bit of reading that I did on it, De Palma wrote this role for John Lithgow. And I watched an interview also that John Lithgow did to promote the film, and he's very much an actor who his part of doing the work is showing up and being enthusiastic about what you're doing, and wanting to play a lot and really dive into it and try things and make it work. And like you were saying before, the way he physically embodies each character differently, and especially towards the end when he's switching back and forth and things like that, it's just so much
Wow.
fun to watch because he uses his entire body in his performance. He's not a stoic actor at all, and just trying to sizzle his way through the movie. He is giving every part of himself to each one of the roles that he's playing.
Yeah, it's even though this movie has bumps, I think
Yes.
Lithgow is the glue that kind of holds everything together. When he's not on screen, we have to focus on the boring
Right.
Davidovich and Bauer characters. It's like, oh, you know what I mean, Lindsay, right?
Oh yeah, because like I said, from watching it as a last century, Lithgow was the one thing that I remembered from it
Mhm.
was his performance. That's the one thing that stuck with me through 20, 30
Right.
years.
Well, I'm like you. I own the Shout Factory Blu-ray
Hmm.
that came out, and there's a reason we'll talk about that why I bought that.
Hmm.
But it was a movie that I was like, I know parts of this, but I don't know the order that they're in, right? And so that's why I wanted to watch this again. I hadn't watched it in a while. But I think Lithgow, he's good. Like when he shows up as Cain, he's doing weird mouth stuff and he's doing weird, like I think he does a Jimmy Stewart impression at one point. Like he's really going for it. And then Carter's like the timid, like the shy, like,
Uh-huh.
oh, like I don't know what I'm doing. I think the tour de force though is when the Dr. Waldheim has him in the morgue
Hmm.
and he turns on and he has the boy, he has Josh, and then he turns into Margot. That stuff I think is where he really nails it on the head. Like, sure, there's the part where it's fun how he plays like the Cain, and you're not sure as an audience if he's Cain or if he's Carter. There's a
Hmm.
part where he's talking to the cops and he's putting on the show, and the camera's staying on him, and the cops look away, and he smiles at the camera. And
Yes.
when he looks back, he wipes the smile, like, oh, I'm back to Titch. Oh, I love how he's doing that. But when he turns it on as Josh and that whole performance and the fourth wall breaking and the
Mm.
way that and then he switches to Margot and it's a completely different. I think that's the scene where I'm like, I'm in love with this movie because it's just an actor's showcase. I think that's where it really
Yeah.
shines, that part.
Yeah. I think too, what makes his performance stand out is everyone else is so bland.
They are so bland and vanilla. So
Yeah.
bland and vanilla.
Yeah. I remember this performance too, and like you guys, I fell in love with it. I thought he was amazing in it. Now, in my memory, in that scene in the morgue when he's doing Josh and Margot, I remember for some reason him going back and forth with Carter and Cain and all the characters in that scene. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know why I remembered it being he was all the characters in that scene, but he wasn't. So when I saw it again, I was like, oh, I thought he did all four characters, in this scene, but which I think would have been he could have done. I think he could have like pulled it off, but so I'm not sure why my memory was wrong like that. But uh,
Maybe it's the
that
movie,
aside, it
just
was
the way
It's
that you
just
remember the movie
right.
being
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I like that they pulled back. When the movie goes subtle, it's like, oh, we can go subtle in this. Okay, like I really like
Yeah.
that. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Um, but as far as the performances go, man, like I just I don't get tired of watching him do it. I could watch him do it, when we're done here. I can go watch it again and be like, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
But so yeah, De Palma, I talked about this before with other episodes we've done where some directors have like a signature and they have
Mhm.
like you can tell whose movie it is just before it even starts. You know who you're watching without seeing the name or whatever. And De Palma's one of those guys. When you start to watch his movies, you're like, this looks familiar to me. Like I can tell this
Yeah.
is a De Palma movie or this is a Spielberg movie or whatever, whoever it is. But some of the things that he does with the camera I think are just awesome. And I think it kind of brings you into the movie without you knowing you're being brought into it. Like you're just kind of
Mhm.
watching also like, whoa, you're being sucked into it because of the way the camera is moving, the way it's kind of pulling you this way and that. So let's talk about some of the camera angles. Lindsay, what'd you think of what he was doing in this movie?
He was doing some really funky stuff, and it was really really cool. The biggest one I would say is the it's like a 4 minute long take
Yeah,
when
Holy
the
they're
walk
shit.
and talk.
when they're oh my
Yeah.
god, when they are walking the doctor down the
Yep.
flights of stairs, off the elevator, and through it all she is just giving you so much exposition. And a lot of times the exposition scene is like one of the worst scenes in a movie because it's just someone sitting in a room talking, but they're
Psycho. Yeah.
right. But we start off and we're looking up at them, and then they come down the stairs and the camera is following them, and she's going the wrong way because she doesn't know where she's going, and she's just walking and talking, and then they're having to grab her and pull her back in, and then we tilt and go down the stairs. So he is keeping your interest and feeding you so much information without you realizing that, oh, this is an exposition dump
Yeah.
is what this is. And no, that seems brilliant. It's so well done. It the another big one that I love, as far as exposition dumps, because you kind of have to distract the audience a little bit when you're giving them all that information, otherwise they're just going to get bored. Like another classic example is in Terminator, where we get an exposition dump during a high-speed car chase.
Right.
you know so but he was able to do it with camera movements and angles, and no, it was really really cool.
Well, what is he known for? Like he's no those long takes, obviously, like the split diopters.
Split
Those are
diopter.
always fun to see. The split
Mm-hmm.
screens. He doesn't do this. I know he did it in Sisters and Carrie and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the Hitchcock homage, not just Hitchcock, because Untouchables has that very famous staircase scene that
Yep.
I want to say rips off, but it kind of more homages the Odessa Steps from Potemkin, that thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it was just like you're saying, Lindsay. He can do Hitchcock, but he will push it to an extra that Hitchcock wouldn't. And I'm not saying that as a criticism against Hitchcock, who's also one of my favorite directors. But
No, the time he was working in, he couldn't have done this
yeah,
kind of stuff.
exactly. And then I think with Frenzy, he did go that direction. I think it didn't really work for me because he's known for more suspenseful stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I liked that De Palma was able to push back, push forward, and really, it sounds bad. He really leaned into the depraved stuff, right?
Yes.
The awful. Like the one other memory I have of De Palma is Body Double, which is a movie that makes me want to shower. I've only seen it twice. After it ended both times, I'm like, I need to shower. Like I feel gross watching this. And it's funny because my memory of that, it was, you know how you used to make when we were kids, we'd make VHS and you could do like the fast speed, the semi slow,
Yes.
and then the super slow. You could fit 3 movies on. My
Mm-hmm.
dad, he had when he obviously my mom remarried to him, and when he moved in, he brought his like VHSs that he'd done.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Body Double, and I don't think he had this because he was that way. Because the movie, I think it was slotted between North Avenue Irregulars and the Thornbird. So it was weird having those on VHS. But Body Double, I think that's a movie that's perfect for VHS because it kind of has the like the video nasty kind of
It
feel.
has that grime to it. It has
Yeah,
that
so
grime to it.
I get it. It's just I don't like that movie because it's gross. Like it's just
Hmm.
everything. But where you have movies like Dress to Kill or Blowout or Carrie, where there are moments, or even Obsession in a way, like ripped off Vertigo, but
Hmm.
there are moments in those movies that are just pure cinema, and you can feel that
Yeah.
you're in the hands of it. Not the whole movie, but there are maybe Blowout, maybe the whole movie, but
Yeah.
there are flashes where you feel like you're in the hands of a master. And there are some shots in here, like you talked about, and Johnny wanted to talk about too. Maybe he'll have some stuff that he wants to mention. Like that whole 4 minute thing, it's like you said, it's giving us exposition, but it's doing it in a way that's showing off in a way
Hmm.
that I haven't felt like since maybe Orson Welles was showing off, right? But it's giving you this info, and then the part where they go in the elevator. First of all, I'm like, how is there no reflection of the camera in the elevator?
Hmm.
How do they time the dialogue so perfectly that when they're on the right beat, they can walk out of the elevator? I'm just like, how do they do this? Like, that's incredible. But I especially loved, I just thought there was a bravura shot at the end where finally, and we can, like, with John, you wanted to mention like the wide angles on Dr. Nix and stuff. But when everything is revealed, and you have them at that hotel where there's three levels, and it starts off with Dr. Nix and Jenny and Amy, and then it pans down to the second floor, and you see the baby carriage, like Margot push it out, and the guy
Hmm.
finds it. It keeps going down, and you see again, you get the reiteration of the sundial, which they've been playing with, and then you see the cops show up just at the right time, and then like again, Jack is in the car, and then it pans in and he looks up and it does like it connects it where he looks up and he can see Jenny backing away. And I'm like, that was
Right.
great. That was great. So even though the movie didn't really have me like his other movies had me, that shot was like, oh man, I need to watch that again. I don't, was Lindsay first, did you have any thoughts of any of those shots that we talked about?
Yeah. Like all that stuff just adds so much to the storytelling. Like he tells the story so much in the way he frames things and the shots that he uses. There's a language to what he's doing with those camera angles and shots. And in certain ones, like the wide angle lenses with the dad, the Dr. Daddy, whatever the heck his name
Yeah.
is.
The Boomsy.
It
Boomsy?
Boomsy, yes. um they're to elicit a reaction out of the audience, a specific reaction, and in those it's we're supposed to feel uneasy, we're supposed to feel off put and just off kilter, like at least in the theatrical cut, the first time you see Cain, like it's a crazy Dutch angle where we haven't seen that yet in the movie, so it's just showing you this is something that's not correct
Mhm.
Yeah.
in this character, and uh so yeah, he uses it for more than just visual appeal. It's giving you information.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to mention was those how he assigned different angles for each character, and like you
Mm-hmm.
knew, who you were, who was speaking and who it was based on by the camera angle and everything, like the Dutch angle in the car, and also the way he lit the characters too. Like Kane was always lit darkly,
Mm-hmm.
and Carter
The
was always lit
shadows. And,
light.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah.
Well,
Um,
what I thought was really interesting, the wide angle lens, when you see Kane get in the car with him the first time, he's using that wide angle. So it's really skiwampy. Like you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like what? It's so you get that it's, how do I put this? Like you don't know if this person is real. Like it feels
Yeah,
real
it's very
because
disorienting.
yeah, and it's just regular film language, like one like over the shoulder, that kind of stuff, or for shot to shot stuff like that. But when Kane goes to talk to Dr. Nix, and they're both shot from the wide angle lens, I thought that was so cool because I'm like, I first of all, I don't know if Kane actually existed, but now I'm like, does the doctor exist? Do
Yeah.
either of them exist? Like there's obviously that cool shot of the smoke that filters in from Kane's POV, right? But I'm like, they're both shot from this really these odd angles that make you think, is this a conversation between two imaginary characters? Is
Hmm.
this how it appears in Carter's head when these characters are kind of hashing it out? And it kind of plays with your perspective, like what do I believe here? And then later when there's no wide angle lens and it's clearly Cain. It's not Carter. He stops using those. I thought that was very, in a way, like Jaws, like how Spielberg used the music to identify the shark, and then
Mhm.
he plays with you. There's a when it's the fake kids that faking that he doesn't play the theme, but you believe it, and so now you don't know what to think, right? So the rest of the movie, he'll play the theme. Williams will play the theme. Sometimes he will or he won't. So you never know where the shark is. It was kind of like that. I was like, that's really cool, kind of subjective
Oh
filmmaking.
yeah, and also just kind of showing that Carter is going more and more away, and Cain is becoming the more dominant entity.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
also like that you could see Carter disassociating? Like when he was getting stressed, he would like do something with his
Oh
eyes,
yeah.
and that's where Cain would come in. I thought, so cool. All these little cool touches in the movie.
One other shot I really like that I gotta mention, is the shot where the wife's on the bed and he kind of lays next to her and the camera just starts to slowly turn and kind of like find its way around. And that's kind of very De Palma-esque.
Mhm.
That's you see that a lot in his movies. And so that's like I was saying, you see something like that, you go, oh, yep, there's De Palma. That's his movie.
Wasn't there that shot where Jenny, it's the dream or whatever, and she wakes up? I loved how it kept, it's what's real. Like, I don't know what's going
By
on.
the way, yeah, which dream was the real
Right.
dream? Which one was?
But she
There's so
wakes
many
up
dreams to look up for.
on the leaves, and then she sits up, and then the camera moves, and then the leaves are gone. I'm like, what the
Yeah,
hell
I
just
love
happened?
that. I love that.
Yeah, all these great flourishes in here I thought were just fantastic. Yeah.
Well, one big question I have for you, Lindsay, because you are the horror expert, um, is this movie a horror movie? Because I have my opinions, but would you classify it as a horror movie?
I mean, there's so much crossover because it's like horror fits into all genres, but a lot of times people are afraid to call something horror, because it's like Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie, but it got this more thriller aspect. A lot of people will instead call something a thriller just because it's got big name actors and a big budget, and it wins awards, so it can be horror. Like there was also talk about The Substance not being horror,
Mm. Oh
that
my
it
gosh,
was it
right?
was
Really?
something else because it's getting these awards, so it can't be horror,
Mm.
because horror is crap, it's shit, it doesn't get awards. At least
Yeah.
not the prestigious ones, prestigious ones. But there's definitely horrific horror elements within this. We have a serial killer, we have we have blood and sex and all these kind of things, dual personalities, and people that may be there, maybe they aren't there, you just don't know. So there's definitely elements of horror in this.
One of the things that I thought while I was watching it is that there isn't a second in here that scares me. Like nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing in the movie that scares. I thought the shot where he's leaping through the channels and then he turns back to the security cam and you see Jenny just really quick and she looks, that was cool. It didn't like scare. I was like, oh, like I thought that was
It's a
some,
jump scare, yeah.
yeah, that was maybe the most thing that scared, but I thought that was really effective. But I guess my thought is I'm having so much fun aware that this is a movie and watching Lithgow's performance
Mhm.
and the split diopters. I'm just aware full hog that this is just a movie and you're enjoying it. So that I think maybe that's why I don't think of it as a horror movie, just because I'm having so much fun during it. I'm never
Mhm.
scared. I don't know. It's just De Palma has that way. I think Tarantino called him like maybe the best satirist of the last 20
Oh
years
yeah.
or something like that over time.
They're very, very, it's like, if you, depending on your perspective, these are just really, really dark comedies.
Yeah.
Really dark comedies.
And this one could be, you could say it's a like a riff on toxic masculinity. I thought that Carter being so nurturing.
Mhm.
In the director's cut, the way he comes off, his nurturingness is really creepy. And so I don't know, like it's just, but is that because of the way he's presented? And then you see Cain come in and he handles it like a man, right? And so all that's played with. When Carter can't handle it, that's when he switches off and becomes somebody else.
Mhm.
And then the hero of the movie turns out to be Margot. I really like that twist, how it gives I thought it gave Lithgow's character some agency finally. He's getting screwed around and he's not in control. And
Mm-mm.
Jenny's obviously she's just waiting, seems like, for Jack to come back into her life,
Right?
right? And so you feel so sorry for him. I just think that when he becomes Margot and becomes like the hero, like I said, of the story, and she gets away with it, and you
Mhm.
kind of want her to get it. We don't feel any threat from her because she's protecting the children. She's killing Doctor the threat, right?
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought that again, that could be. You don't have to look at it that way. I just thought that was kind of. It could be funny if you're looking at it that way.
Oh, I know. I would definitely agree with that, and especially in the director's cut, because in the theatrical cut, right away you're seeing him do some awful stuff, whereas in the director's cut you see what she's up to first, and he's set up as this because the friend in the park is like, you're married to the perfect guy, he's so
Yeah.
amazing, he's just great, it's awesome, I'm so jealous of the man that you have. But then that makes that switch like so much bigger, especially for the audience, because he's been built up as this one thing, and oh my God, his wife's cheating on him. He's set up as a sympathetic character. He's
Mm.
this really attentive dad and all this kind of shit. And so when that turn happens and he attacks that lady in the car, it's so much bigger of a
Yeah.
reveal than just pushing it out there as the opening stinger of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And but I really do agree with you about the masculinity stuff, and just because it's using multiple personalities to just kind of show that duality, with masculinity, and how fathers push it onto sons, et cetera, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the subject matter is horrific. I think, like you say, the serial killer and the baby snatching and all that stuff, that's terrible things. If that were to happen in real life, that's horrific. That's horror. But when you're watching it as a movie, if it doesn't have the traditional scares and the gore and what you're used to seeing in a horror movie, it's hard for me to think of it as a horror movie because, like Darren, I'm having a good time watching it. I'm enjoying myself. But the music will tell you that it is a horror movie. I think
Yeah.
the music is in my opinion, over the top, and I think it's almost too much in some places. I'd prefer it to be tamed down, and I did not like the sexy sax. I didn't like. I feel like I was watching a Skinamax movie or something.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Uh, who is it? It's Pino Donaggio. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But
Mm.
again, the music we talked about, like Spielberg and Copland, Scorsese and De Palma being the movie brats of the 70s. The music score really gives off like a 70s feel, it feels like. And again, if I'm looking at his filmography, I think Donaggio did Don't Look Now was his first one, which is one of my favorite horror movies. Piranha, Carrie, stuff like that. So Dress to Kill, Blowout, Body Double. So he's worked with De Palma before.
Hmm.
But yeah, I love that when it has a saxophone. I'm like, oh, it seems very 80s. Why is this in a 92 movie?
yeah,
That kind
Oh
of
it
thing.
yeah.
used to feel like a TV movie in my.
Well, and like this was his comeback to this genre,
Right.
like this was the genre he was known for when he was starting out, and then he started doing other things, and then he did Bonfire of the Vanities, and
Mm.
that was a huge bomb.
Was Body Double the last horror movie he did before this?
Possibly, I'm not 100% on the timeline,
But that's up
but
to you.
this was
Keep
like
going.
his return
Yeah.
to his real, his bread and butter.
Right.
And if you're De Palma, it's like looking at what you've already done, it's like, where do you go with the thriller genre besides just push it as far as it'll go,
Yeah.
just amp everything up to 11 and just almost make it absurdist.
Yeah. That's maybe the only way to really watch the movie, right?
Right?
So,
Well, I have some criticisms, and so I hope you guys don't mind. But my biggest thing is first of all the script. I hate a lot of the script, not all of it. I do hate a lot of it. I
okay.
think a lot of the characters are one-dimensional. They're not very well developed. They're, like I said,
Mm.
bland and boring. And I think some of the dialogue is just horrific, especially with the cops. In the cop scenes when they're talking back and forth, trying to act all like whatever. It's just like it's like they're trying way too hard, and I get bored and I get disinterested. But I, like I say, the only thing that really pulls it back is John Lithgow, and so
Mm.
I just wait for those scenes and I wait for those moments again because I get so bored during the bad dialogue and the hokey, easy lines they have in there.
Well, could that be they're just trying to get it to the next thing or just trying to, they're not
Like,
wasting any
yeah,
time, that kind of thing. Lindsay,
yeah.
are there any like flaws like that you notice? I
Oh,
don't want to
definitely.
nitpick this movie,
Oh
but
no, like this movie is confusing as hell at points.
yeah.
It's kind of messy because it's told non-linear, both the theatrical and the new cut. There's non-linear elements, and when you're already like shifting between different people and personalities, and then you're shifting also between different timelines, it can get a little confusing. Just a
Right.
little bit, because I wouldn't know what it's like. Did she sleep with that guy in the woods? Did she go to his apartment and try to switch, like, did things happen or didn't they? You're constantly questioning that.
Right.
And I think this is kind of pushing another De Palma trope just even further, is that, and I kind of touched on it before, but it's like he's not there to make the audience feel warm and fuzzy. He's not there to give you your conclusion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's not giving you what you want.
Right. I think this movie's kind of a lark. Like it's fun on its own
Mm-hmm.
terms. It's never as fully informed as a blowout or even
No.
I know Dress to Kill has a lot of pushback, but there's some stuff in there that it's just very elegantly done and thematically it's all very well
Mm-hmm.
held together. And same thing with Carrie. I don't think there's a lot of that here, especially in the director's cut. There are things that happen before we have a chance to grok what's going on.
Oh
So
yeah.
he's kidnapping this girl or he's going to kill this girl. And so you're not really caught up in that moment of you're scared because you're confused. You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I guess that's what we're doing, right?" Or I mentioned the part with her in the security camp, the part where all of a sudden she becomes like an MMA fighter and she's able to punch him out and knee him and stuff like that. Where did that come from?
Right.
And there's a lot of like I was confused until I saw the director's cut. Like the Matt guy, the retired guy that comes in, he
Mm-hmm.
comes in and it's like it seems very quick. He's like, "Oh, I've been listening for this conversation for 30
Yeah.
seconds. I've already called Waldheim. She's already on the way over."
Yeah.
But you see in the watching it a second time, you can see him in the background on the phone already when the scene begins. So that at
Mm-hmm.
least skimmed over from stuff. But still, when he says Waldheim is on her way over, it's like 30 seconds and she shows up. And I'm like, how far away was this hospital? Like, was it next door? And so there are just some confusing bits. Like I said, I think because the Palma famously had issues trying to figure out how to open the movie, like he couldn't make it
Yeah.
work. And listening to his criticisms about how he should have put it in Jenny's perspective first instead of starting with Carter's. I
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly agree with that because when it's doing that vanishing riff when he's chloroforming the girl or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't have a hook. I don't know what's going on.
No, no, it's just you're thrust into this situation. And that can work a lot of times with a thriller because it piques your interest. You're like, oh, what's going on here? But with him having the attack scene first, it completely negates all the stuff with the wife later. It makes that part even more boring because you're
Yes.
like, I want to get back to the crazy guy. What is
Yeah.
going, because with the other cut, you're into the story is her and her affair and what she's doing. It
Right.
kind of does this bait and switch where you think it's, this is where the story is going, but no, it's really about this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely theatrical wise, it's still enjoyable. It has Lithgow in it, but there are some
mhm.
things that the director's cut solve by just rearranging stuff that makes
Yes.
it feel so much better.
Yeah.
One of my other big flaws, I like how it's halfway into the movie and then it starts a voiceover. Like she starts talking to herself. I'm like, wait, what? Like
And
now
that's
we're
the
doing
only
this?
time it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, wait, this is really so it kept doing these things where it would take me out. And I think that's why I think this is more of a lark. It's like not
Mm-mm.
bottom tier because I do enjoy the hell out of this movie, but it's
Mhm.
not blowout. It's not Carrie,
No.
right? It's not even Dressed to Kill, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's all it would that's my biggest flaw with the movie is it just doesn't have that dramatic hook all the way through.
No.
Yeah, and it wasn't even good voiceover. It was just what she was thinking. You're like, I could have got that by just looking at what she was thinking, you know?
Yeah,
You don't
it's
really
Yeah,
see it in a voiceover. And it kind of confuses you because you're in the theatrical, you're kind of on his perspective, and then it switches to hers, and also
mhm.
there's a voiceover, so it kind of throws you off. In the other cut, it starts with her, and so you think you're following her, you think it's her story, and then the voiceover kind of could work, I guess, because you're following her to begin with.
mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah. So Darin, the fan edit, which is the director's cut, right?
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts on that real quick, and then we'll get Lindsay's thoughts. But because I have some thoughts too, but let me hear yours first.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Like again, the reason I bought the Shout Factory Blu-rays because I think he released this guy. I want to get his name right. Pete Gelderblum. He loves the movie, but always thought there were flaws to it. And so I think he did a fan edit himself and he released it to like Collide or something like that with an essay. The thing with fan edits, it's a fascinating kind of culture where I think the first real attention that got was with the Phantom edit, where it has this guy, Mike J. Nichols, who re-edited the Phantom Menace to kind of pull out, it's famously for the Jar Jar Binksless version, but that's not right. Jar Jar Binks is actually in the cut. It's just less. And he took some stuff out and rearranged some things. But the idea of these fans taking these movies that they love and kind of rearranging them so that they don't have to worry about the flaws as they're watching them
Yeah.
is a fascinating idea. Like if you look at all these fan edits, you've got like I think they with Christopher Nolan they put Memento in a chronological order version of that, which I
I
think
have that DVD. I had that
okay,
version.
it
Yeah.
it would have taken away the fun of it, but interesting to watch. I
Yeah.
think they have a Manson family list version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where they take out the violent stuff. They've got like a Kirkless version of Star Trek Generations, that kind of thing. So they've got all these different kind of fan edits. And the guy that brought this to my attention, I want to get his name right. He's Andrew Saladino. He does the Royal Ocean Film Society series on YouTube. He did a video on these fan edits, so he talks about those, but the thing, so again, there's a whole culture. Look into it. Anybody listening to this or you two or anything you want to do to kind of immerse yourself in that culture. But this guy, Gilder Bloom, what's fascinating about this is, again, he recut it to but De Palma's specifics, the way the original script was. He rearranged the movie to be like there was no other footage he could work with. There's no deleted scenes. It's just rearranging stuff, which is fascinating. But the whole idea that it's his fan edit, he made it for himself. Brian De Palma himself got a look at it and was like, this actually solves all the problems that I had with the movie. Can and he contacted Gilderbloom and said, can I make this my official director's cut? How cool is that? That a fan edit finally got the attention to do that, right? So my thoughts on the director's cut is I think it's a better version. It still has huge flaws that keeps me from loving it. But the way that it has Jenny's story first, the way that the inner monologue starts 8 minutes into the movie, that felt more natural. It still felt weird because I wasn't used to it from the original cut. But at least from this version, it makes sense. I like the idea that it's voyeuristic. Like she walks in first thing and she makes herself literally, she walks in on camera. She's the star of a movie, right? That's literally like the metatextual stuff that's going on. And she walks off, she's buying these clocks, and you see John Lithgow come in, and it's very normal and all this stuff. The whole first half, when it's all of the romance and it's all the affair, and that's where you think it's going, and she's like I said, it's like she's just waiting for Jack to show back up so that she
Oh
can
yeah.
it's immediate. And you feel for Carter. I think in both versions, you really feel for him because you see her doing all this stuff, even though which is weird, right? Because it starts off with him being a killer, but you're still empathizing with him like you empathize with Norman Bates, where you want him to get away with it because you don't know he's actually the killer, that kind of thing. But the way that it has her whole section, it feels very normal, very much a romance. Like you said, Lindsay, when it does that turn, when she wakes up from her third dream or whatever, and Carter's doing the thing where he's telling her all the things that she's wanted to hear from what she's told Sarah, from what she's imagining in her head, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should go back to work. This is hard on you. Like that's all that stuff is answered, and then he shoves the pillow over her face, and that takes a huge turn. And like I said, with Lindsay, what you pointed out, it's like that. It feels much better. It feels more organic to the story. Now we switch to his perspective. We see what's going on. It ties back in with, she tells Sarah the story of, oh, he started to make love to me, but then he left the house. And then you see him do that. You're like, oh, so that actually took place after this scene. I thought it connected a lot cooler. But there are still some issues with it. I think that, like I said, the director's cut is a much better, much more linear, organic, natural feeling movie. But when Cain goes to see Dr. Nix and Nix is like, you're going to go away for a little bit. And just the next scene is Carter spying on them, on Jack and Jenny walking off. And then Cain is right back. I was like, oh, like what? So that was even jarring. There's still jarring things that happen here, but I don't know. I just as a movie, it at least works better structurally from that way. I mean, Lindsay, what do you think about all that?
Yeah. No, it's definitely better narratively that way. Because I mean, it kind of echoes Psycho. You talked about Norman Bates. It's like she's our Marion Crane, We think
Yeah.
we think this is our protagonist, which it kind of ends up being a little bit, but really this is John Lithgow's story. And you really do feel sympathetic towards him, and that grows even more throughout the movie, once you get to the end where you realize no, his father traumatized the hell out of him as a child and turned him into this thing. And Carter doesn't know what he's doing. He blacks out and stuff. And so he's not really the one that's in control when all these awful things are happening and people are getting killed. And then at the end, he becomes the hero. He's the hero, and he gets to kind of walk away from it. He gets out of it. He doesn't go to jail. He doesn't have to pay for the sins of his father, so to speak. So, but I think that the director's cut is a superior film compared to the theatrical one. It just sets things up so much better, and there's so much confusion. It just throws you in with the theatrical cut, where the director's cut starts you out and sets things up a little better for a better punch, and you can kind of get your bearings a little better with the director's cut.
Absolutely. Well, if you're looking at director's cut, this is not drastic like a Blade Runner would be, like taking out voiceover or one shot of a unicorn or anything. It's not like The Abyss, where James Cameron adds 45 minutes of alien stuff back into it. What's fascinating about this is it's taking footage that is in the original and it's just rearranging it. It's putting it at different spots, and you're like, oh, it works so much better, even though it still has flaws. I'm like, why wasn't this the movie? Why was it so hard? And yeah, they repeat that one scene between Jenny and Sarah, but I like that transition. I think Gelderblum talks about, I didn't have any footage, so I used the shot of the playground in the end to kind of bridge that gap. And you see that. So again, that's what makes this, I think, a minute longer, is it just repeats that same scene. But I don't know, Johnny, your thoughts on the director's cut? I just thought it was fascinating that it just rearranges. That's all that it does, and it's a drastically different movie.
Yeah. No, I agree with both of you. I do think the fan edit slash director's cut is a superior version of the movie. My only issue is this: I think it lingers too long on the intro, watching her story. Because I find myself getting bored, and I want something to change quicker than it does, and it takes a while to get there. And it's already being told in a non-linear way, so why not jump back to Carter and Cain in the car killing the first victim and everything, and why not go back and forth? You can do that. You're already doing it later on in the movie anyway. So just keep my interest by like cutting it different. So maybe do a fan edit on the fan edit.
Again, I like the structure of it, how it starts being her story and then it twists to be his. I get that.
Yeah.
What I liked better, the story, I still don't like them. The part that irks me to no end is when she, again, does the MMA thing on him and she captures him. And then you see them in the police station and she's already cuddling up with Jack while Carter's in the next room.
She's not a good person.
No.
Also, she's not a good person. Like, she's full on making out with this married man over his dying wife. It's like, you're not a good person.
I like that scene in the hospital too, how you see the wife turn over.
It's very creepy. It's very creepy and very effective.
It's not meant to be on paper. It's not. She just turns over and sees her husband. That's her last. It suggests that's her last thing that she sees before she dies. Is just the way that it's. That's what I mean with horror. It's like you can take a scene that seems normal and you can do slow motion or a DiNaggio kind of weird horror sting to make it creepy and make it horror. I like that. So again, I think it's worse in the theatrical cut, Johnny, when you cut back for an inordinate amount of time now because you've already been introduced to Carter. I like that it's a gradual build at least, and I get that. It's still boring because I don't care about these characters. I don't care about your wife, Jack. Like, I don't think you're a good person, right? But even then, I still like the idea of it, that it works so much more smoothly, at least being from her perspective and switching perspectives and then kind of combining the perspective in the end. I think that works better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's much better. As far as split personality movies, where does this one rank on the list of best or worst when it comes to other movies that are similar, like Split and like Fight Club and The Machinist, maybe? Movies like that. Do you guys have a favorite split personality movie? Is this your favorite one, or are there other ones that maybe are better?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sit and think what other split personality movies there are.
I mean, because I know Fight Club is definitely a good one. And I also really like James McAvoy's performance in Split.
He is so good in that because he really is switching
I
back
think
and forth between all of these.
to Lithgow in this one. I think they are on par together with their performances as far as
yeah. No, I would agree with that, especially with the physicality of each different one.
Yeah. What other split person? I think Fight Club is the one that really because I can't think that has a point to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's
Yeah.
another toxic masculinity type movie. But yeah, what other? And then my thoughts, I guess, on Split is that was the movie where I was like, oh, this is the Shyamalan that I remember from Signs. Like, where's this guy been? Even though it's still not great. You know what I mean? But and I think McAvoy, because again, it has that weird thing where they talk about Hooters, and I'm like, what, why is this? It still has that weird stuff that Shyamalan's like too in love with
Mm.
this. But again, McAvoy, that's a cool comparison because I think this is Split is kind of an updating of this particular story,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
McAvoy papers over a lot of the like the flaws in that movie.
Definitely. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? And it's like, got mine, all my stuff's covered.
Um, I think if there's anything else. Kind of look over my notes, but
There's
oh, and there are, speaking, going back to the masculinity thing, like there's things beyond even Lithgow's performance that kind of tip their hat at the he's trying to maybe critique or satirize, like especially American male masculinity, because there's that scene when he's in the car with the woman and she's passed out, and like the kid's starting to wake up and you see the two male joggers approaching and he's freaking out, not knowing what to do, and Cain's like, just kiss her, just kiss her. And the men are very suspicious as to what's going on in this car, but then they see that, he gives her a kiss and they're like, they start laughing, and then they go on by. And
Yeah.
that lady ends up in the river. So it flips that, they were suspicious at first, like something's going on in this car. Oh, it's a man making out with a woman, so it must be okay.
Innocent, right? Yeah, there's
Yes.
nothing really bad going on. Yeah, very.
No.
That's interesting.
I thought that was a very interesting scene.
Right, right. Well, I think for my notes, it's all I have. But I do want to just closing out my thoughts on De Palma, and then if it sparks anything with you too, like feel free to add. But De Palma, like I said, he's a rip-off artist. I think that's maybe too harsh because he does have his own personality more than
Mhm.
a J.J. Abrams has. Like I don't know what a J.J. Abrams movie is, even though he's made a few. I don't understand him because he's just copying all these things, but he doesn't do it in a way that makes it his own. De
Mhm.
Palma makes these things his own. Like you said, Johnny, you watch this and like, oh, this has to be a De Palma movie because this all these shots are really weirding me out.
yeah.
Oh, there's a split
It is
diopter. Like,
busy.
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? So I love that about him, and he's not shy about it. Like he's not coy. He'll flat out tell you, oh yeah, I love that. So I ripped it off. Like Obsession is very clearly a Vertigo ripoff. Like it's just very clearly that. And then there's just different I don't know, like there's different kind of shades, I guess. Raising Cain doesn't quite get there, but there's still a love of movie making, and you can just hear him to the side of you. The spirit of De Palma, who's still living, by the way, but you can hear him smacking his lips and rubbing his hands together, like he's delighting in weirding you out or making you feel weird things.
Mhm.
And that's something that I think is missing from a lot of filmmakers. Like you can't hear them or feel what they're thinking. And famously, like Pauline Kael really loved Brian De Palma. Tarantino obviously loves
Yeah.
but I found a quote like Pauline Kael reviewed Phantom of the Paradise, and defines not just De Palma, but I think defines all of his movies, Raising Cain as well. But she says, though you may anticipate a plot turn, it's impossible to guess what the next scene will look like or what its rhythm will be. De Palma's
Mhm.
timing is sometimes wantonly unpredictable and dampening, but mostly it has a lift to it. You can practically get a kinetic charge from his wit. It isn't just that the picture has vitality, but one can feel the tremendous kick the director got out of making it. And even though this movie has those flaws, I still at the end of the movie, I'm like, I'm glad this is a De Palma movie. It's still him, and I still can delight in this stuff, even though the rest of the movie doesn't work. And like I said, there are shades of stuff. I think Raising Cain is maybe in the lower half of my top 10, but I still love this movie. I mean, Lindsay, do you have any thoughts on what Kale said about De Palma and how that might describe all of his movies?
Oh yeah, because like every, any memorable director has their own like signatures or styles. Um, And I think De Palma is towards the top of that list because his is so evident, so to speak. It's like we said before, oh, this is a De Palma movie because this shot happened and he did this thing and that thing. So you know it's a De Palma movie. And not a lot of filmmakers can say that, especially with these type of themes and these type of movies that he's it's kind of hard to describe because not only does he, I guess really, like I said before, it's just he uses the camera in a way to tell the story. And it's very, very much his specific style. It may be influenced by, Hitchcock or Argento or something like that, but it's still so much him, even though it's influenced by those. He puts his own little personal twist on things where it's so evident that it's him. And I think that's what I appreciate most about him, because I mean he writes a lot of stuff that he directs, but no, it's just the things that he does with the camera and with lighting and color and how that elicits reactions from the audience, I think is the best thing about De Palma.
Yeah. I think overall, I mean, it's a really fun movie. I really enjoy John Lithgow. I really like watching the De Palma, camera work, and all it needs is a better script and a less crappy score, and we got a good movie.
Less sax.
Yeah. Just those little things.
All right, so Darin, should we talk about what's next to come, or Lindsay, where can we find you? That's what we should do next.
That's what's next to come. Yeah. What do you have on the horizon here, Lindsay?
I'm getting ready to do a very large VHS haul. People like my VHS haul videos, and I've started a small collection of a new kind of VHS, taped off TV VHS. So those get interesting, like recorded VHS. You can find some interesting things on there. So that's my newest little obsession. So I've got some of those that'll be in the VHS haul. And then the best of the best series. We did part 1, but we've got 2, 3, and 4 coming out. And you got to see where this franchise goes, because it goes off the rails almost immediately, pretty much immediately.
Well, it's good if we're going to have to watch Best of the Best. It's good to have a host like you again. The way, what was it? I can't remember the name. Where James Earl Jones, he keeps saying
Dahan.
Yes. And you keep cutting to it every time you mention his name. I'm like, that is so funny. You do a thing where you say Sean Penn's name and you cut to the Sean Penn from Team America or something like that. Just the way, Lindsay, I adore the way that you, and again, with your VHS haul stuff, it's the same thing. Like when you see, you mentioned a movie, like, oh, I've always wanted to know what Lindsay thinks of this. And so it's great having these little pockets of your movie opinions, but also the best of the best. Like, why would you take your time, like, to go through these? But that you're doing it, I love that you're back. And again, like I said, I'm always watching out. Like I'm rooting for you always to not get sick and just to keep doing these videos. So yeah, I appreciate your voice, and I really appreciate that you're out there and your friendship and just doing this for us. Like it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
No, I love doing this stuff because it's always a good conversation, because we really I love your guys' perspective on stuff.
Darin, you gotta find another name for her to add to her Twitter bio.
Right. Just something like occasional doer of other people's podcasts to help them. The last
infrequent podcast guest.
Right. The last story I do want to mention is I loved Lithgow's performance in this so much that I sat down and showed it to my wife, like thinking that she was gonna, and we watched the movie and it ended. I'm like, wasn't that great? And she turns to me, she goes, I just really don't like John Lithgow. So I just wasted 90 minutes.
Oh no.
But it's just to each his. I just thought that was really funny that I was showing her this whole movie, and then finally she's like, "Oh, the reason you liked it, I don't like that guy." So, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It didn't work. I just thought that was really funny.
Oh my gosh.
All right, then for NostalgiaCast, I'm Johnny Craddock.
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
And it's not the mileage, honey, it's the make.
Hickory dickory dock. Cain has picked his lock.
I'm the man you made me, Dad.
All right, thanks, Lizzie. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.